Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin. Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin.
41 pages of ordinal gooiness. It's really That's good, right. man. I spent a whole morning, afternoon looking at it, just like trying to understand this high, what are we calling this? It's just like
high density, high, very confusing, highly confusing. A lot of new stuff there.
What do you? So for people that don't know, Casey's been working on this ordinal spec for a while now. Yep. And your background is primarily, I don't know. What is your background actually?
I'm a programmer. I dropped out of high school and I didn't know what I wanted to do for a long time. And then I took a programming class at a community college when I was like 20 and I was like, okay, awesome. This is what I'm going to do. And then I managed to transfer to a decent school and studied programming. And then I worked at some giant tech companies. I worked at Google as like a site reliability engineer, and I was like, "Wow, this sucks." And then I actually worked on Bitcoin for a bit. I worked at Chaincode Labs. Way
With
way
Merch
back in the
and
day.
Jonas and those guys.
What's that?
With those guys, Jonas and Merch.
Jonas and Merch were not there at the time, so it was like the original founders who were Suhas Daftour and Alex Morkos, and a couple other guys. So it was way back in the day. But I was kind of miserable working on Bitcoin. Like, it's very slow moving. It's very hard to get anything done. It's very conservative, as it should be,
I like how you threw that in there at the end. You're like, as it should be.
Yeah,
That's
like,
funny.
not like, listen, no shade. I think the Bitcoin Core development process is good. And also at the time I had written a lot of Rust, which is this new, very shiny programming language. And Bitcoin Core is in C++, and I kind of didn't want to write C++ anymore. It's just very fiddly and very inexpressive and very tricky. So then I went back to work at a giant tech company, which was really stupid. I worked at Oculus for a while. Doing nothing related.
Were you working with? And they got I guess did they get consumed by Meta, right? Or they?
Yeah. I was working at Oculus while they were like fully part of Facebook. So I was basically a Facebook employee.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did you ever meet Zuck?
No, I mean, I saw Zuck. I caught sight of Zuck, around a corner and like on giving presentations and stuff.
But you never had a chance to like have lunch or?
No, I regret it. Like I should have, like at the time, Facebook, like I just should have gone to him and be like, hey, like, I know Bitcoin pretty well. Like, here's why Facebook should be interested in Bitcoin. And because I don't know if there was anybody at the company who was just giving him that perspective, and maybe if he had gotten that perspective earlier, they wouldn't have done Libra. They're sort of doomed
stablecoin.
They're doomed stablecoin project. Zuck could have been like, yeah, we're going to give every Facebook account a Lightning wallet, right? And that would have been a crazy change.
Yeah, that would have probably killed Lightning at the time, right? Or who knows? Like, I don't know. If it would have been. It would have probably been Bitcoin, right? It probably would have been Lightning.
Yeah, give everybody a Bitcoin wallet or something like that, instead of doing the Libra project, which was doomed. But yeah, so I worked at Oculus, but I didn't do anything related to VR. It was all like consuming JSON from endpoints and then massaging JSON and then putting it back to other places.
Did you see what he posted? The founder of Oculus here recently. He did you see that? It was on. He had did this whole thing. He was just kind of upset about Oculus and how it turned out.
So are you talking about Palmer Lackey?
So. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, very controversial figure. While I was working there, it came out that he had donated to some sort of like Trump thing, and everybody was very upset about that. Very, very, very upset.
Wow. It's kind of like the whole Elon thing right now going on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
What are you what are you going to do with this Ordinals thing?
Yeah, so back to ordinals. So I guess for people who don't know, ordinal theory, as I'm calling it, sort of humorously, is basically a sort of a second layer on top of Bitcoin. I don't really know whether to call it a second layer or not. It's a way of just looking at what's already in the chain and reinterpreting it. And specifically, its basis is a way of assigning unique identities to every single Satoshi, and then tracking those Satoshis across Bitcoin transactions. And it doesn't make any changes to Bitcoin. It uses sort of normal Bitcoin transactions to do this. And it doesn't, so there's that. And that lets you sort of like collect and trade sats. You can have like rare exotic sats like from particular blocks or that have particular properties. But more recently, we released this thing called inscriptions, which are basically Bitcoin native NFTs. I kind of hate the term NFT, but whatever, it's the familiar term, I'll just use it. So they're Bitcoin native NFTs, and they work by including some content in a Bitcoin transaction and assigning that content to one of the sats in the transaction. And then you can track the ownership of that sat that has this special content through further transactions. And so if it's attached to a sat, then that means you can send it, you can receive it, you can trade it. And so basically it creates Bitcoin native NFTs. So that is what I am doing with ordinals at the moment. And it's not just me. There's another
you got
guy.
More people. You have more people working on ordinals now?
So there's me, and then there is Raf Jaff on Twitter, who's the other primary contributor. And then there's a few other people who pop in every once in a while and contribute or contribute with ideas and advice.
So you're further along than the last time we talked about this.
Yeah. So we've done a lot more work. You can go to signet.ordinals.com and you can see the NFTs that people are starting to make on Signet. We haven't released them on mainnet yet because we want to make sure that we never break any inscriptions that people have made that have value. But yeah, we did all this work. Now we're polishing up the website, and we're trying to get to a mainnet launch where we actually let people create these mainnet, these like Bitcoin native NFTs on mainnet.
Yeah, I'm on there right now. It says Bitcoin native NFTs or no theory enables Bitcoin native digital artifacts that are as durable, immutable, secure, scarce, and decentralized as Bitcoin itself. Natively, no sidechain or token required. So these images, Casey, they're just attached, like you said, inside of the UTXOs, I guess. Is that the right way to frame it, or you said
sort of? So,
I guess they're inscribed, I guess, right?
Yeah, so the images are actually contained within Taproot witnesses. So they're contained within TapScripts, and there's sort of a few reasons why this is a good way of doing it. So you make this transaction and you put the image inside of the witness and you sort of structure it in a special way, and then the ordinal software, there's a wallet, there's a terminal wallet. It associates the image that's in that transaction witness with one of the sats used in that transaction. And so that, conceptually it inscribes that sat with that image. But yeah, it's not in the UTXO per se. The sats are in the UTXOs and they move around UTXOs. It's in one of the transactions that was sort of a parent of the UTXO.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm reading here in the Ordinal Theory Handbook. Yeah, this is an amazing handbook, by the way.
Thank you.
It shows that you are using, where's it here? Since Taproot script sends can only be made from existing Taproot outputs, inscriptions are made using a two-phase commit reveal procedure. And then you go on to explain how that procedure works.
Yeah, that's right. So in order to, there's technical reasons why we want to put it in a Taproot script, the main reasons, there's two reasons. One is that if it's in a witness, which a Taproot script is in the witness, it gets the witness discount, which makes them cheaper. And because these inscriptions, the content can be large, we definitely want to make sure that we get that discount. And then the other thing is that Taproot witnesses compared to SegWit witnesses and compared to other input types are relatively unrestricted. So they don't have any restrictions on the contents of the like how big it can be, or there are very few restrictions on how big the witness can be, et cetera. So we need to use, but Taproot scripts, you only can reveal them after you've spent to an output. So like let's say the way that a Taproot script gets revealed on chain is, for example, you send me a Taproot script, an address spending to a Taproot script that you control. I send to that address, and the script has not been yet revealed on chain. But then when you spend from that output, you have to reveal the script on chain in order to prove that you satisfy the conditions of the script. And so creating an inscription is a two-phase procedure where the wallet will first send to a Taproot address that commits to the script that contains the inscription, that contains the content. And then it spends from that output and reveals the script in that spend. And that revealing of the script and the inscription that's contained within the script, that's what actually creates the inscription. Okay. End users don't need to worry about this two-phase thing because the wallet does both transactions, and both transactions can be created and broadcast at the same time and mined in the same block. But yeah, so it's a two-phase commit and reveal.
It's interesting here, like inside of this, I'm on the inscriptions part, but it's interesting here because you actually go into what the string looks like, and you even
like the script.
Yeah, like you even say like the first string is the ORD push, right? And I guess that's the spec that you're using, right?
Yeah. So the way that the content is stored is kind of interesting. So
right, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. It's really interesting.
You want to store, like when you're putting something in a script, you want to be able to use the script for other things. Like, for example, you want to be able to include other conditions, like, a script, a signature check, for example, so that the spending is authorized. So what we do is the script that we store it in is a op false, and then a op if, and then the contents of the inscription are just data pushes, which are like just, raw bytes, and then an op end if. And so it's basically like this branch of the script that doesn't get executed. It's like an if false. And so it never gets executed, and you can just stick whatever data you want inside of there.
Yeah. So you even go into detail as to what each op means. Like the op 1 indicates the next push, and then you go op 0 indicates the subsequent data pushes contain itself, and then you even go into the part where it says the hello world. So you really do a good job of explaining this stuff that's like really high level, or at least somebody like me. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's also a pretty extensive FAQ where I compare it to Ethereum NFTs, for example, and the different properties. I think that's one of the best parts of the project. I think it's I think a lot of Bitcoin people just won't be interested. In part because everybody who is really interested in NFTs probably went to Ethereum a long time ago. But I think that these NFTs compare very favorably with Ethereum NFTs and actually have better properties than Ethereum NFTs.
Yeah, then you go into the RGB and Taro assets. But I remember you saying the last time that they're not very comparable. Is it, or?
I think it's fair to compare them. I believe that RGB and Taro both have functionality for collectibles. But I think the main difference is that inscriptions have been made, ordinals and inscriptions have been made from the ground up to support the use case of collectibles. And so, or digital artifacts, as I call them, but like, I'll just say NFTs because that's simplest. But so to support the use case of NFTs, to be very easy for users to use and to present NFTs very nicely and have features that are specific to NFTs. Like, for example, you really care about who issued an NFT, what collection an NFT is part of, and some other specific, like the content type of the NFT. So I think that given that focus on NFTs, that inscriptions are probably going to be more featureful and have a better end-to-end user experience for NFTs than things like Tarot and RGB. Although it's TBD. Tarot and RGB are very early on, and if they get extremely popular, then I assume that somebody will do the work to polish the NFT inscription, the NFT like user story on Tarot and RGB. But yeah, I'd say that's the comparison. And then also ordinals are much, much simpler.
To understand too, I think.
Yeah, they're very simple conceptually. The sort of the way that sats get assigned identities and the way that sats transfer through transactions is extremely simple. And then the way that inscriptions get added to sats is also extremely simple.
Yeah, it sure is. How long did it take you to make this handbook, Casey?
I think, let me look at the handbook. I mean, it sort of depends. I made it piecemeal over time, but the large pages like the inscriptions, the overview, the inscriptions page, the inscription guide probably took me a few, like 2 or 3 days of work.
Wow.
Maybe not solid work, but like, yeah, a couple days.
Wow. You know what you should do? You should get make a little handbook like this big, like 5x7. Just put like Ordinal Theory handbook, and then you just, whenever you go to conferences, you go to meetups, you just hand it out like it's some kind of secret,
Yeah. It'd be awesome if it was like leather bound. Like something that looked like a spell book.
That's what I'm thinking, dude. Like it'll be really cool because then you can just like, oh, you don't have the Ordinal Theory handbook? Like what's going on?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
Dude, I love what you're doing with Ordinals, man. It's one of those projects that you had said from the very beginning that was going to be very hard to create, and you were going to have to meme into existence. And like but now talking to you now, it seems like you kind of got a good understanding of like where it's all going.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to work on a big project that has a lot of steps because you have to make good long-term decisions. But then if you think too much about the long-term, you'll freak yourself out by thinking about how much work you have to do. I have plans to do trustless offers to buy and sell so that you can offer to buy and sell an inscription in a decentralized way that you don't need a marketplace or a trusted intermediary. Eventually, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to make it, but there needs to be like a mobile wallet and like a desktop wallet and a browser wallet probably. And so you need to make sure that you make the choices that you're making right now so that all that stuff will work in the future, but not think too hard about all of those future details so you don't get overwhelmed. So that's kind of helping. Like I kind of just accepted that it's going to be a lot of work and I'm just focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. But then also I've gotten a ton of help. Working with RafJaff has been great. My friends have been really supportive about it. I think probably my friends being enthusiastic about the idea of ordinals when I first told them about it is probably the main reason why it has happened, right? If I told them about it and they were like, yeah, cool story, bro, whatever, I would have probably just given up, but they were enthusiastic about it. And they were like Ordinal Theory. I didn't make up Ordinal Theory. My friend Mark
he
made
did?
that up. He was like, yeah, Ordinal Theory, bro. And I was like, yeah, Ordinal Theory. That's right.
Such a great name, Ordinal Theory.
Yeah. So that's kept me going.
Yeah, I would say like you doing the ground game of like getting it out there and just making it happen, and it got me interested in it, and that's because when I first heard about this, I was like, this is ridiculous. and the more and more I kept learning about it, I go into
you learn just how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, and then but there's something to it though. There's something I don't know what it is. It's the just what do you call that? It's just like the everything is like perfectly ordered. And I think maybe that's why I like it. It's just like,
It sort of appeals to people with OCD.
probably, but I'm not OCD, but it's like, maybe it's one of those things where it's like, everything's in its place. And it's just like art, you know? So
I think it is I think it adds some fun to Bitcoin. I don't think that there are a lot of projects that people make on Bitcoin that are explicitly, the only goal of the project is to be fun and interesting and involve art and creativity. There's a lot of creativity and fun in projects on top of Bitcoin, but it's usually like a side property. Like Lightning, there's a lot of really fun and creative Lightning services, but the Lightning protocol is not designed primarily to be fun and interesting. And so Ordinal really is designed to be fun. It's designed to be aesthetically pleasing. Like I made choices because I was like, ooh, I can do like fun, cute features with that. And so I think maybe that's what you're kind of sensing as you like read the docs and like learn about it, is like, yeah, it's lighthearted. It's just supposed to be fun. It's just supposed to be interesting. Like that's the point.
Yeah. And then you have sat hunting, ordinal hunting. What is this? I didn't really get to dive into this part or the bounties part.
Yeah. So, I mean, the sats all have individual unique numbers. They start at 0, they go to 2.1 or 2.09 quadrillion or something. And they're all just kind of mixed up out there in UTXOs. And so we've been running bounties where you can claim the bounty by finding particular rare sats that have certain properties. So sats that are, for example, from a particular block, sats that are they were mined right after a difficulty adjustment or right after a halving. There's a way that all the sats have names that are just strings of the letters A to Z that are representations of their number. And so the latest bounty is to find a sat where the name actually makes up a word. And we have a word list of common, I think 12,000 words from the Google Books data set. So if you have a sat with a word from that list sitting in one of your UTXOs, you can submit it for the 400,000 sat bounty.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And this we call ordinal hunting.
This is fun. Yeah, I even see here. So you have like the people that have claimed the 100,000 sats claimed, 200,000 sats claimed, 300,000 sats claimed. Then you have a 400,000 sats bounty still out there. Yeah, this one I think we accidentally made it too hard. It's extremely difficult compared to the first 3 bounties. You have to find a sat that has a name that's on this list, and I think that there's 2 problems. One is that there aren't very many names on the list. There's like 12,000, and there's 1.9 quadrillion sats. So compared to the amount of sats out there, the amount of sats that are eligible to claim the bounty is very small. And then also the words tend to be clustered together. Like a lot of words start with the same few letters. And this means that they'll tend to be together in the same UTXO. They're not like evenly spread throughout the supply of Bitcoin. And that makes it even harder because, it means that any given UTXO is like less likely to contain a name. Like instead of each UTXO containing like one name, there's like a few UTXOs that contain a lot of names and most of them contain no names. And so it's very difficult. So we made it's way, 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 way too difficult. The prize should probably be like, realistically, it should probably be a few $1,000s for the level of difficulty involved. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Put it out there for people to go check out. Yeah, go check it out. It's Bounty 3. Yeah. So when I think of Ordinals, there's so many use cases that you can kind of do, right? There's the NFT, the rarity kind of use case. You also have, I think you had mentioned one time there's a decentralized DNS possibility. How would that even work? I guess.
So Yeah, this is like highly wacky as much of the project is. So I just want to give that disclaimer. Like I'm not saying like this is a airtight replacement for the DNS. This is a wacky replacement for the DNS, but every single Satoshi has a name, which is a string of characters A through Z. And every single Satoshi is sitting in a UTXO somewhere. And so that means that if you look at a name like, Thriller, hypothetically, you could find the UTXO that it's in, and you could find the address of that UTXO. And the address, if the address is a public key, you can then use it to make an authenticated connection to the person who has that, the private key corresponding to that public key. So you could use sats as a sort of DNS, as a sort of like, if you, I don't know what you'd call it, like the name.sat or something, I don't know, where you could go from a name to a public key and then to a connection to the person who had that sat. It's slightly weird because you can't go and buy a particular name. Like, let's say you wanted the name Thriller. Well, you can't, there's no, that unless somebody knows that they have it, that name Thriller is just out there attached to one of the existing sats.
Oh.
So it's unlikely that you could just buy any arbitrary name. Unlike, in the normal domain name system, if a name is unclaimed, you can just pay the registrar money and get it. But in this system, you would actually have to find the names that you want in order to like get them. Or somebody could create a market where they could put, where people could put good names up for sale, sats that had good names up for sale, and then people could buy them. And so, in the far, far future, maybe you could use this as an alternative to the DNS.
I think the first thing that I see, the first use case that I see is like just the marketplace, right? Where you could go, maybe there's an application that I could go drop some UTXOs in, and then it tells me like what cool, exciting ordinals that I have, I guess, right? And then from there I could put them on the marketplace and then sell them, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
That would be like the first. That would be like the first use case, I think, for like I don't know, what would you call it, like an ordinals marketplace of sort?
Yeah, I don't know, like sat market.
Sat market, yeah, and you're just selling those. Like that would be interesting, because I wonder if people would actually go and purchase them. I wonder how that would work.
Yeah, there do seem to be some rare sat enthusiasts on Twitter who have been submitting these bounties and having fun with ordinal theory. So I think if there was a market and you could buy and sell them easily, then maybe you would get some market participants.
Yeah, it would be cool. It would be cool just to have like, I don't know, maybe let's say I have like 100,000 sats, and I'm just like curious to see like what these are. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm working on a system of doing what I call offers, which is a partially signed Bitcoin transaction. Like let's say I want to buy a particular sat. I can create an offer, which is a partially signed Bitcoin transaction, where I see the UTXO that sat is currently in, and I create a partially signed Bitcoin transaction that pays some amount of money to the owner of that sat, and I sign for the money that I'm paying for it, the input that I'm paying for it, and somebody who owns that sat, the person who owns that sat can complete that offer, that partially signed Bitcoin transaction, and turn it into a fully signed Bitcoin transaction, and then broadcast it to the chain. So essentially, it's a way of doing a distributed marketplace where everybody can like create these partially signed Bitcoin transactions that represent offers to buy a particular sat or offers to sell a particular sat, and then just broadcast them around. And your wallet, whatever the interface is, will be able to see the offers, and you can click accept on an offer if you want to sell a sat or buy a sat.
Oh, wow. It's like you're recreating CryptoKitties all over again.
That's right. Yeah. Although I think the level of decentralization will be much, much higher. So I'm sort of even though I'm doing this silly thing, I'm taking decentralization very seriously. And so, unlike centralized marketplaces, like for example, OpenSea, if you go list a NFT on OpenSea, if you want to list your NFT collection on OpenSea, you actually have to give OpenSea permission to transfer your NFTs on your behalf.
What? Oh man.
Yep. So this offers system avoids that. When you create this partially signed Bitcoin transaction, you're not giving anybody permission over the UTXO that you're using in that partially signed Bitcoin transaction. You're sort of creating something that can be fulfilled only by getting the deal that you want. So it doesn't have the problem of OpenSea where, one, you have the centralized marketplace that everybody has to go through, and two, it doesn't have the problem that you actually have to give possession of your things that you want to sell to the marketplace.
Yeah, I'm looking at OpenSea right now. Man, this is crazy. The amount of ETH that they're charging for some of these things.
Yeah,
it's not even
NFT, like the prices don't make any sense. I mean, they're just completely insane. I was looking at this crappy pixel art of a sheep on OpenSea, and it was like $1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And there's definitely going to be crap on ordinals. There are definitely going to be ugly, stupid inscriptions. But my hope is that there are also some cool ones. That's actually kind of what changed my mind about NFTs was I sort of saw NFTs and I was like, okay, these are all super dumb and super ugly. And then I saw some NFTs, particularly generative art NFTs, where a programmer creates an algorithm and then the algorithm generates abstract art. I saw some of those and I just thought they were really cool. I thought they were really cool, really beautiful. And so that made me kind of stop dismissing NFTs, because all of a sudden I saw some that I thought were incredibly cool. But yeah, the vast majority of NFTs are terrible. And so I'm sure there will be a ton of terrible NFTs on Bitcoin once they...
Yeah. Because there's something out there right now, right? Doesn't Rare Toshi have something of a sort? Or do they? How is that even... do people
Rare Toshi is on Liquid, so it's on a side chain.
Okay, it's on Liquid. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so to people who are sort of skeptical of NFTs and have only seen really stupid NFTs, I'd say check out Art Blocks. Art Blocks is just Art Blocks. Yeah, it's just a cool collection of generative NFTs, and a lot of the art and the code is very cool.
Yeah, I'm checking it out right now. It looks really interesting.
You should go to the curated. There's the curated collections, which tend to be better than the non-curated collections.
I see that. Yeah, totally. So do you think this could exist, something like a curated collection of a sort on ordinals with the inscriptions? Do you think this could?
Yeah, totally. If Art Blocks wanted to start making Bitcoin NFTs, they could create a collection of ordinal inscriptions and do it on Bitcoin.
Wow. Yeah,
there have been. So they're sort of in the realm of Bitcoin NFTs. There isn't anything that's been Bitcoin native. So the other NFT projects are for example, Rare Toshi. Rare Toshi is Liquid, which is a side chain, and then there's also Counterparty. Counterparty uses a similar technique to ordinals in that it sort of embeds the data in the chain, but it has its own token. So it's sort of in the shitcoin category. They launched an ICO way back in the day. And also it's not very good for NFTs, and it's not very modern. It's pretty ancient.
Yeah. Counterparty token is $3.
Yep.
right now. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It kind of makes more sense just embedding them inside of the already existing Satoshis that are out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of have to, it took me a while to come up with the way of doing it without like kind of with what Bitcoin already has. If you want to do a project on Ethereum, for example, you just kind of write Solidity and then it takes care of you, and you don't really need to know the details of the protocol. But if you want to do something on Bitcoin, you really have to understand the Bitcoin protocol pretty deeply to try to figure out how you can make the protocol do what you want it to do. Like, for example, for Lightning, like you have to look very deeply at, how Bitcoin transactions are constructed, how Bitcoin script works, the consensus rules. And then only when you're paying attention to all those things can you come up with a design that works. And in this case, gives you, micropayments or payment channels in the case of Lightning. And so ordinals are kind of a similar thing. It took me a long time to see where you could fit in NFTs into the Bitcoin protocol.
Yeah. You're doing it, man. You're doing it.
I'm trying. Yeah. Things, if ordinals get popular, there is going to be some controversy.
Oh yeah. You're let's tell them again.
Yeah. So, I mean, the inscriptions are in Bitcoin transactions, which means that they pay fees and they compete for block space with other Bitcoin transactions. So if inscriptions get popular and people want to publish a bunch of stupid monkey pictures to the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, that might change the fee market. It might mean that we go to a temporary or permanent higher fee regime, which might not be so fun for people who are used to getting transactions in at 1 sat per VByte.
Wow.
Yep.
You heard it here first.
Yep. So I expect if that happens, there's going to be enormous controversy. One, because people don't like paying higher fees. And
you'll go into hiding, you think?
Yeah, I'll have to go into hiding. Yeah. First death threat, and I'm moving to like Sweden or something. I don't know. But yeah, like people don't like paying higher fees. And a lot of people consider, I think will consider this use case to be like an illegitimate use case of Bitcoin, that it's not an appropriate use case for Bitcoin to stick content in Bitcoin transactions. So that might be kind of spicy.
Oh, it totally is. I can already hear I can hear it already. I can see it now, right? Like,
you
even mentioned touching Bitcoin in the wrong way.
Yeah. But I think that the fee thing is actually kind of inevitable, and it's actually necessary and I think beneficial for Bitcoin. Bitcoin relies these days mostly on the new coins being created in every block to fund miners to provide security for Bitcoin. But as the new coins being created get cut in half with every halving, fees get more and more important for securing the network. They're a more and more important component of the rewards that miners receive. And if the block reward were to drop too low the new coins being created, the subsidy were to drop too low before fees get high enough, then we would be in an uncomfortable scenario where there might be not enough of a security budget for Bitcoin. So if ordinals become popular and they create demand for block space, all those extra fees will subsidize Bitcoin security, and transitioning to a high fee, in fact, like a permanent fee environment where fees are always high, is, I believe everybody thinks, is necessary for Bitcoin's future security. So I actually think that I agree paying high fees is annoying and sucks. But if the alternative is Bitcoin not being secure in the long run, then I'll take high fees and Bitcoin being secure.
Yeah. Right. It kind of goes back to hopefully Lightning is successful, and then we can all move over transactions like in shipping containers, right? Isn't that the thing?
I think that's right. Shipping big efficient cargo ships full of shipping containers full of Bitcoin transactions.
Right. Yeah. So Another thing I want to kind of touch over, and it it kind of goes with the whole current supply of ordinals, and this
Mhm.
always like makes me like the numbers get longer. Like it,
Yeah.
I was writing an article today about your ordinal theory handbook that I just
Mhm.
published right before we started this pod. And just when I get to the numbers section, for whatever reason, Casey, like it just starts unraveling.
Yeah.
It's just
People
like
don't
boom,
like numbers.
boom.
People really don't like numbers.
Well, it's not even the fact the numbers thing. It's just the supply and then like you think, yeah. So can you just kind of give me like kind of a quick, well, yeah, it's probably not going to be quick, but like an overview of like how the supply of, I think, because it's in the quadrillions, right? The amount of uncommon Satoshis.
Yeah.
See, I'm already having trouble explaining it.
Well, yeah. So I mean, these numbers, ordinals at its heart is this system of assigning serial numbers to Satoshis. And so the numbers start at 0 and they go up by 1 for each Satoshi. And so the biggest serial number, the biggest ordinal number, is the number of Satoshis in existence. And one Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis, and there's 100 million Bitcoin. And when you multiply, or 21 million Bitcoin, and when you multiply 21 million by 100 million, you get 2.1 quadrillion, which is an extremely large number. Like, I don't even think that I've ever heard about a quadrillion anything in real life, right? Like, I think the biggest numbers that I hear about in real life are things about the US or world economy, which is always measured in trillions.
I mean, we'll get to quadrillion at this rate, but
yeah, with inflation, we'll be at quadrillion soon. So they're very large numbers, but yeah, each Satoshi has an individual serial number, and they're in the order in which the Satoshis are mined, and so they get extremely large.
So the part that I find really fascinating is the, like, when you get into like the rare and the mythic and then the epic and like these type of things. Like, to me, that's that's like the crowning jewel. That's like the Temple of Doom, right? When you get to the thing, like, can you explain that to the audience what those are?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for fun, I created a rarity system for sats, so that, I wanted to make some sats rarer and some sats, more special than other sats. So I tried to look at the Bitcoin protocol for, like maybe something in Bitcoin, I can use something from the existing Bitcoin protocol. So I decided that I would use the periodic events that happen in the Bitcoin protocol, the repeating events. And so the most common repeating event in Bitcoin is a block. Every 10 minutes, there's a Bitcoin block. And so if a sat is not the first sat in the block, then it's common. But if it's the first sat of the block, it's uncommon. So that's the first rarity level, is an uncommon sat, just a step above the common trash sat. And then the next most common, the next most frequent periodic event in Bitcoin is the difficulty adjustment. Every 2016 blocks or 2 weeks, there's a difficulty adjustment. And so the first sat of the first block of the new difficulty adjustment period is rare, as like the next, step up. I think the color for common is gray, the color for uncommon is green, and the color for rare sats is blue. And then the next most frequent periodic event in Bitcoin is the halving. Every 210,000 blocks, there's a halving, and the block reward gets cut in half. And the first sat of the first block after the halving, or approximately every 4 years, is mythic.
Yeah.
And it's purple. And then for a long time, I thought that was that was where the rarity system would end, that was the final tier on the rarity system. But then I realized that there's a periodic event in Bitcoin that's even rarer than the halving. So the difficulty adjustment and the halving normally don't happen on the same block. The difficulty adjustment is every 2016 blocks. The halving is every 210,000 blocks. And if you divide 210,000 by 16, it's not an even number. So it means that, they don't divide each other evenly. So the difficulty adjustment and the halving don't happen on the same block. Except once every 4 halvings, or approximately, 24 years. Yeah, every 4 halvings, every 24 years. Is that right? No. It's like 6. It's every 6 halvings. Yeah, every 6 halvings or 24 years, the difficulty adjustment and the halving happen on the same block.
Wow.
Yeah. There will only ever be 5 such events. Yeah, in the entire history of Bitcoin. So I think there's like, I forget how many uncommon sats there are, but there's 33 halvings, I think 33 or 34 halvings. So there's going to be 33 mythic sats, but there's only 5 times when the halving and the difficulty adjustment happen on the same block. So those are legendary sats, and they are gold, and they are the highest tier of sat. They are the true collector's sat. I expect that the first one is coming in around 2034. So there isn't even one legendary sat yet, but I assume that the block that it arrives in, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath with people trying to mine that block. Yeah, it's going to be brutal.
Because more people are talking about this now, or you think it's just ordinals will have taken off by then?
If it was mine tomorrow, it definitely would not be a bloodbath. But yeah, if ordinals take off and people get into this highly wacky sat rarity system, then maybe it would. Maybe there'd be some hype around then. It's like a new Supreme drop,
Yeah.
It's like the Supreme Satoshi collab on rare sats.
Wow, dude. See, for me, like that part, like what you just described right there, that's the part that really gets me going when I think of ordinals. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Everybody has a different thing. Like somebody else, like when I gave that talk at the Pleb Lab about ordinals, somebody else said the same thing. He came up to me after, he was like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like I was kind of like, whatever. And then he was like, yeah. And then you were like talking about rarity. And I was like, oh, these are like Pokemon cards. It was like, yeah, bro, that's right.
Yeah.
Other people really like the naming system. Like they really like the fact that each sat has like a unique individual name. And some people like the inscriptions that you can like add content to a sat. But yeah, I think there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, ordinals it might just be a thing when like kids will be taught this in school when they're like going to Bitcoin school or whatever. Just like and Professor Casey is teaching you ordinals today. It's
going to be the art class, I guess. Like the elective.
Yeah, man. It's really cool. Like this all came from your mind, right? Like just so everybody knows, or did you grab this from somebody else, or how did?
Yeah, interesting story. So it did all come from my mind. I started about
crazy, Casey, that you like had all this in your head. Not crazy in a good way.
No. I appreciate it. I take it as a compliment. But yeah, so I started about a year ago. And really I was like, okay, like I want to make NFTs. I've made some generative art in the past, the kind that like has gotten popular on Artblocks. And so for the first time, I was like, oh, like I want to make NFTs. Like I didn't really care about NFTs in 2017 when they were popping off because I didn't see that there was a market for like the kind of art that I'd like to make. And I actually thought about doing it on Ethereum. I was like, okay, like, I mean, Ethereum kind of sucks, but there's a market for NFTs. Maybe I'll make my own NFTs and sell them on Ethereum. And then just looking at Ethereum and the way that it works and the smart contracting language and the security and the development and just everything, I was like, I can't touch this. It's so awful. Like it's so centralized. A lot of the technical choices are so dumb. Like I couldn't do this. The main thing is that like I could make NFTs on Ethereum, but I could never encourage people to buy them. I could never tell anybody like, hey, yeah, this is a good buy. Like there's so many problems with NFTs on Ethereum. Like for example, each NFT collection on Ethereum is a smart contract. And that means that, if somebody adds the, permissions to the smart contract, they can, if they like add these permissions when they write the contract, the creator of the contract can delete NFTs, change the owner, change the image, or change other attributes of the NFT. And then also a lot of Ethereum NFT content is not stored on chain. And so it can be arbitrarily changed by like a lot of the content of Ethereum NFTs literally points to like web servers on AWS.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was like, yeah, I can't do that. And then I was like, how do I do ordinals on Bitcoin or NFTs on Bitcoin? And one problem with doing something like NFTs on Bitcoin is that Bitcoin doesn't really have any stable identities. Like wallets reuse addresses, or wallets don't reuse addresses. So a wallet will use a new address every time. So you can't say like this address owns something, because each address should only be used once. And then UTXOs are created and destroyed, right? Like when a UTXO is used in that transaction, it doesn't like subtract. When you use if I send you, 1 Bitcoin and I have a 2 Bitcoin UTXO, I don't like subtract 1 Bitcoin from that UTXO and create a new UTXO or increase a UTXO that you have by 1 Bitcoin. That two Bitcoin UTXO is destroyed, and a new 1 UTXO, 1 Bitcoin UTXO that you own is created, and a new 1 UTXO Bitcoin that I own is created. So like you couldn't have a UTXO like own an NFT, because UTXOs were just destroyed. So finally, like I noodled on it for a long time, and I was like, okay, like maybe we can like assign identities to sats, and because the transaction kind of preserves sats, right? The same number of sats that go into a transaction exit a transaction. If we can come up with a way of transferring sats from the inputs to the outputs, then we can stick NFTs on sats. And I went through a bunch of iterations of this, like how to track sats and how to number them and everything. And then when I finished it, I was like, these are like serial numbers for Satoshis. And so I went to Google and I typed in Satoshi serial numbers, and I found a blog post, not a blog post, a Bitcoin Talk forum post from 2012 from Johnson Lau. I forget if his name is Jonathan Lau or Johnson Lau, who proposed exactly the Satoshi numbering and transfer scheme that I came up with, and posted a Bitcoin Forum Talk post on it. And people talked about it for like a few pages and then just like forgot about it.
Wow.
So I actually think that it's sort of a case of independent invention. And there was one other, which was there was a proof of stake implementation for Bitcoin that was proposed, and it didn't explicitly number the Satoshis, but it used a very similar like transfer algorithm to figure out like where the Satoshis are. And so I think that the ordinal theory is kind of like almost like a natural, like hidden part of Bitcoin. Like since multiple people came up with the same idea, it's kind of something that Bitcoin naturally lends itself to.
Right. And then from there, you just kind of started working on it pretty much. Is that kind of how it happened? And then at this point you have the handbook and everything else, and now developers coming on.
So I started working on a website, which was just like a website for like looking at individual ordinals. And at the same time, I started working on an index, which will talk to a Bitcoin core node and to build the location of all sats, like for each UTXO, what are the sats in that UTXO? I did that for a while, and then I started working on a wallet. And so the wallet also, it doesn't have its own wallet. It just talks to a Bitcoin core node on your machine. So it's terminal only. And then the handbook and the bounties and now inscriptions, and trying to make inscriptions look good.
So now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then like we're working towards mainnet and just making it look really good, the website, so we can do a good mainnet launch that like people will like be like, oh, that's cool. Like I want to own some inscriptions. And then we'll try to see how to help a market develop, because these things are they're more fun if you can buy them or sell them and just be just degenerate. Like I kind of think that ordinals, they're kind of like a shitcoin for Bitcoiners.
No, I wouldn't call them. I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I mean, ordinals, there's no, I'm not minting any tokens. So it's not really a shitcoin, but it has that shitcoiny like fun aspect to it.
Does it? No, whenever I think of shit coins, I think of them as like they're just bad. Like they're not even well thought out, you know? I feel like this is, it's better than that. It's way better than that. I think it's more fun and you kind of like, you have this rarity to it that has a lot of different, use cases potentially. At least that's what I see in it, but maybe you're right.
I just mean that some of the shit, like probably some of the fun of being a shitcoiner is like collecting shitcoins like they're Pokemon. You're like out there, like in the tall grass, looking for promising shitcoins, looking for some shiny shitcoins,
Well,
and
yeah,
like obviously shitcoins, there's other reasons why shitcoins are bad, but that's probably fun. And this lets you do that like with your sats, with just Bitcoin. And so you don't need to feel bad. You're not supporting like terrible devs or whatever. You're just like looking for like shiny sats in your YouTube.
Yeah, you want a certain type of sat when it's sent to you. You're like, don't give me those trash sats. Give me like
exactly,
some good sats.
Yeah. You could also do some strats like if you want to go hunting for rare sats. So like deposit some Bitcoin to an exchange. And then, don't deposit a lot because, maybe the exchange will like go away or rug you or whatever. And then withdraw the same amount out and you'll get new sats.
Oh, wow. You just, You know what's interesting? You could probably do like ordinal kind of like sat hunting where you just like, I don't know how you would do it, but you would just put an address somewhere where somebody could lift sats and then like you just place them around town. QR codes, and then like everybody just uses their app to
totally
find.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I already have the bounties.
Yeah, the bounties. But it would be cool to see that in real life.
Well, wait, check this out.
What's that?
These are open dimes.
Whoa.
That the bounties are going on. The bounties are going on these open dimes.
Dang. That's sick. Is that the same case that you got from Nashville?
Exactly. Yeah, it's my Bitcoin Park like attendance gift.
That was a really nice gift.
Yeah. Here, wait. Let's see. So the bounty addresses for the different bounties. This is bounty 0. So this bounty has a sat which is ends with a 0. This was a very easy one just to get people getting started. This open dime, it has a old sat. I believe it has a sat that was mined in block 426. So way back in the day, maybe like a month or a couple of weeks after the Genesis block. And this open dime has a uncommon sat. So the sat is the first sat of the block in which it was mined.
Wow. So you're collecting these already. Look at you.
Yeah. Balling out of control over here.
God. Have you talked to MBK about this? Have you ever had a conversation about ordinals?
Directly, but whenever I post about like the bounty and I post pictures of the open dimes, I've seen people from like open dime like it. So I'm sure he's aware. Yeah.
Well, if you're listening, MBK, have Casey on the Bitcoin Review podcast. I think that would be cool.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I'll be on the Bitcoin. I'll talk on any podcast about ordinals. Let's go.
Do you remember that time when we were at Bitcoin Park and I was trying to get you on to Citadel Dispatch? I was like, yo, what's up, Matt? And then you were right there, and I was like, yo, Matt. So when's the ordinals on Citadel podcast happening? He just looked at me.
It's coming eventually.
It's coming.
I feel bad. I
You can't be embarrassed to shill it. You can't be embarrassed to shill it, Casey. That's the thing. You gotta like go in hard.
That's like a privacy advocate, and these are like the opposite of privacy. Like, to be clear, they don't hurt your privacy if you don't use them. If you don't use ordinals,
but if you're collecting them like you and putting them on open dimes, then
what's that?
If you're collecting them like yourself and putting them on open dimes, then it's kind of privacy, right?
That's true, yeah, because they just go into that open dime, and then you can't see them. You can't see their transfer afterwards. But yeah, it is sort of encouraging people to use the Bitcoin blockchain in a more public way. And so I sort of, from a privacy perspective, it's not the best.
Yeah, maybe they're out there already collecting them. We don't even know. Maybe some people are like ahead of you, and they've already gone out there. They looked at your work and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to be out there grabbing all these rare and exotic ordinals sats before everybody else does.
I wouldn't be surprised. There's always some like really cutting edge degens out there who just go ham.
Dude, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but how's the Hell Money Pod going, man? That's that
Hell Money Pod, yeah, ripping strong. YouTube.com/@hellmoney or
dude, podcast of the year.
Money.
Podcast of the year. It's you guys have my vote. Like,
oh yeah,
podcast of the year, man. Like, there's
nice. Thanks. Man.
There's not a better time watching, Bitcoiners on YouTube than Hell Money Pod.
It's good, forward to our next episode. Erin, my co-host, she dressed up as AOC, and I dressed up as Donald Trump, and we debated democracy. He was pro-democracy. I was anti-democracy.
Oh man, I like the one that you guys just did it recently, where it felt like a horror movie. And yeah, you're giving me that look. You guys were driving. You were driving, and it was like, I guess it was silent. Like, you guys hadn't turned on the mics yet, and it was silent. And it was just like this one shot, and then you guys pulled up, and you're like, "All right, welcome to the next episode of Money Pot." I was like, "Whoa!" It had. You guys were like in the forest or something, like in the car, but like talking.
Yeah. I kind of like the. So I think that we record on video and we do audio, and so if we don't do anything, all our video looks all the same. It's just me and Aaron sitting at my table talking in my living room. And so I started wanting to get some like visual interest to the podcast episodes or to the video. Just like, I think it's just fun if they look different. And I don't actually think that you need to do that much. I think they just need to be different from your usual setup. And so we recorded one where we were both in the forest. That was our debate capitalism episode where Aaron dressed up as an elf.
Yeah, I remember
and
that
I dressed up as a businessman and with a pipe. Yeah, and we debated capitalism in the forest. And then we did that episode, which we recorded in a car. And then we did the AOC versus Trump episode where we just wore costumes. So it's like, I think like, and I want to do other ones. I don't think that you need to do anything too crazy. It's just like, if you make something look different about the environment, it makes the videos a lot more fun instead of just exactly the same. Every video looks exactly the same. But I think the key is that you don't mention what you're doing or why you're doing it. So the episode that we did in the forest, we never once mentioned that we're in the forest dressed up. The episode in the car, like, I don't think we mentioned once that we were in the car.
Yeah, you guys don't. Yeah, don't. The only time I think Erin said, she's like, "Oh, you're gonna smoke out or smog out this beast," or I don't know what she described it as, but yeah.
My 2006 Honda Civic.
It's a great pod, man. I really enjoy listening to it and checking it out every week. It's how I stay up to date with Ordinals.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Where should everybody find you? Where should everybody check everything out at?
I guess my handle that I have everywhere is Rodamor, which is my last name. It's spelled RODARMOR. So you can find me pretty much everywhere. Twitter.com/RODARMOR. Website is RODARMOR.com. GitHub is, I actually have Casey on GitHub. So github.com/Casey. The project, the Ordinals project, like the binary, all the code, that's github.com/Casey/ORD. And Hell Money Pod, hellpodcast.money. That's the URL for that.
Gosh, doing a lot, man.
Yeah, it's busy. But I mean, honestly, I do it because I've helped, because my friends are awesome. Like, the pod only happens because of Erin. She edits all the episodes. And we keep each other motivated for doing it. And Raf, who's working with me on Ordinals, and then also Wildman, who's sort of a friend of Ordinals, who comes up with a lot of good ideas and kind of has his pulse on the broader ecosystem. Yeah, totally. Couldn't do it alone.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what Ordinals comes into. Like, it's this little project that no one's paying attention to right now. And then all of a sudden, Jack starts tweeting out Ordinals. You never know.
Jack's gonna sell his first Noster post as a Ordinals NFT.
You just never know.
I'm losing my mind. these walls white, and I wonder what's the point of this life. Sometimes I'll pray, but I will never close my eyes. I want to be happy. Find a man with an old name just like me, and get over how my dog is my best friend, and he doesn't even know what my name is. Johnny, did you ever